Time to fight fear with faith. Jody Paar is a survivor who is no longer staying silent. She and her guest will fuel you up so you too can fight fear. Uplifting and inspirational stories that will rock you to your core. We don't tiptoe around the truth. We steamroll it in a bold way. This is your life, and now is the time to start living it. Get ready for the Faith Over Fear podcast with Jody Paar. Now, welcome Jody Paar to inspire you.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Faith Over Fear. I am so excited and happy to have you guys log in, watch, and be here with me today. I want to let you know that this is my very first episode, and so I wanted to have a very special guest for that, and I found the perfect woman. So I have Melody Garcia. She is an international best-selling author. Her book is also in the Library of Congress. She is a keynote speaker who is sought after, globally speaks around the world. She is a transformation catalyst and coach, and the resume goes on and on and on. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Melody. I'm so honored to have you as my first guest, and I want you to tell us a little bit about how you started out.
Well, thank you so much for having me on your show as your flagship guest. I don't know if that's going to put a lot of pressure, but thank you so much for welcoming me in Faith Over Fear.
Yes.
So, to find out a little bit more about what I do, I would invite your viewers and your listeners to visit melodygarcia.org, O-R-G. Mm-hmm. And the title of the book is Women Who Influence, that became an international bestseller and is in the Library of Congress. But just to give you a bit of a background of who I am, I was born in the Philippines. Okay. And to basically very successful parents. One was a physician, mm-hmm. but also chief of staff of 2 hospitals, presidents of different clubs, very well loved by all because he had a huge humanitarian heart.
Right.
And then my mother is also successful in her space, although never finished high school, moved in the rankings of corporate, and then also became an entrepreneur with several businesses.
Wow.
So earliest recollection is my father taking me to, once a month down to the remote, kind of like poor places, mm-hmm. Outside the city, so he can donate his medical services for free.
Wow.
And not charge people, because he always, shared with everybody, including myself growing up. He took an oath to save people's lives and not bleed them dry.
Oh, I love that.
And that to me, it was a deeply rooted seed.
Yeah, that's
but
powerful.
Yet we still lived comfortably,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like tongue-in-cheek, the Crazy Rich Asian movie.
Oh, I love that movie.
If you've seen that.
Yes.
If you've seen that. But we were very comfortable. We had several maids, went to the best private schools, but in their philanthropic walk and humanitarian heart, they just wanted to help everybody. Right. One of those people became a distant relative that ended up moving up in with us because he couldn't really support his family from the province he was from.
Okay.
So he moved into the city and lived with us for a very short time, taking odds and ends job. And by doing that, this is where our life literally, went upside down.
Okay.
So when he was taking one of this odds and ends job, he ended up discovering some type of information that he felt the public had to know. It literally had a conspiracy theory element to it.
Wow.
Something that was not, that was well kept, that he felt that the public had to know. So that led to him setting up an appointment with a radio broadcaster, because you got to think way back in the days, it was about the radio, right?
Yes, girl. Yes.
Radio. And so, television, not like now. Social media did not exist then, right. But he felt compelled that the public had to know. Well, before he could get to that appointment, he was literally kidnapped in front of one of my mom's place of businesses, and my mother got to witness this, 4 or 5 men throwing him in the back of a car. And that was the last time my parents ever saw him alive.
Wow.
Next thing you know, they were getting called in a couple of days later to then identify a body in the morgue. And what was done to him was completely there was no mercy. Let's just go with that, of just being violently murdered over the information he was about to share. So the things that you look at, it's almost like this crazy horror action film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then what proceeded after that was death threats, severe death threats, psychological tactics. That my family had no idea that there was surveillance on the family. They had they basically would go in. The same men would then go into my mother's place of business and kind of camp there and say, if you don't keep it quiet, the things that we can do to your daughters. We know what schools they attend. We know where you guys go. At this point, what parent would not do everything within their power to save their children? And all I remember is being pulled out of school. My sister being pulled out of school. We go on a lockdown in our home, and we have no idea what's happening. This is probably for over a week or two, because I was still young, not small, but young, right? And
so this is probably when some fear definitely. I mean, that's very fearful whenever your uncle gets killed and then your family's being threatened. Did your family know what that secret was?
No, and that's the crazy part of it. To this day, we have no idea.
You don't know. Right.
We have no idea, but it was big enough that he was murdered for it. Right. It's big enough that even my own parents received death threats, and of that. Yeah. So my last recollection of the Philippines was being woken up in the middle of the night by maids, being told to be quiet as they're packing frantically. Like I said, middle of the night. It was like pitch black, past midnight, right?
You're sleeping. You're sound asleep.
I'm sleeping, and I'm being shook, waking up and being told to hush, be quiet. Lights are off, very dim, and there's like this flurry of activities. And I remember the maids just packing luggages as fast as they can. And outside our house was a white van waiting to transport us. Us, meaning it was just my mom, my sister. My father had to be left behind to take care of things. And, and even though we've come to the United States as tourists before, we've done the whole Disney thing, and just like, any other family that you do the Disney thing and toured different parts of the country, this time it was different. This time we found ourselves now living with relatives, like overnight, literally. 1 minute we had a great lifestyle. The next minute, my sister and I are now sleeping in a 1-bedroom floor while my mother had the bed. 1 minute, my mother's a highly successful entrepreneur, belle of the ball. Right. To now sweeping gas stations at 7-Eleven.
Wow.
To make ends meet, making $3 an hour. 1 minute we were all together as a family, and the next minute we were yanked apart.
Wow.
And we have no idea why. And it was all rooted because my parents decided to help somebody.
To help him, right.
And yet at the same token, it was rooted because then he found information that he was silenced permanently for. So it was not a life of comfort. It was a life of a lot of challenges. I grew up feeling that I was not good enough. By this relatives of mine that I've learned to forgive along the way, because they're only limited to their certain beliefs and and things. But at that time, as a teenager now growing up, the feeling of being told you're not going to sit on the couch that's too brand new. You're going to sit on the floor. No, you can't have a birthday party inside the house. You're going to have it in the garage. No, you're limited to a 1-minute phone call. So there was a lot of pain internally of going, one day I'm going to make that mark. One day you're not going to make me feel this horrible about myself. Because at the same token, my mother had basically said to us when we disappeared and then reappeared in the United States later on, as this sage is like, forget everything that you know, forget the lifestyle that you've had. This is life now in America where we have nothing. Wow. But keep everything that is good. And remember that we are never alone. Right. God is always with us. And of course, as a young girl, even through my adult life, I'm like, if God's always with us, how in the world will he allow all these things to happen to us? I mean, we're good people. It's not like you guys were bad parents. You were helping community. You're helping cities. You're helping people that are in need. Despite the wealth or the comfort that you had, how do very horrible bad things happen to good people? Yeah. Of course there's doubts. And even though we went to church and praise and worship, and then the those emotional things that were happening to us growing up, you question, where is this God?
Yeah, of
Well,
course.
why is he allowing suffering to happen?
Right.
Right. And not even in the scale that you see with what's happening around the world now. But of course, as a young impressionable, that I've always prayed. Prayer was a routine in our life, but it was one of those where I'm going, why is this happening?
Mm-hmm.
And one day, it was always this one day I'm going to prove myself and everything else.
Right.
So one day we fast forward, I fall into the corporate career of my life. I go into the routine way of living.
I always like to do this part, and I don't mean to
Yes.
cut you off, but this is just because of the whole background of where you came from and what you went through. You were valedictorian of your school.
Mm-hmm.
That is that's
Thank
a
you.
big deal. I
I was
mean,
valedictorian when I was young, and then high school I was a good, okay student.
yeah,
I had good grades.
yeah.
And then but I graduated early. I skipped 2 grades because of that move. By the time I graduated high school, I just turned 16. Basically, I was 16. And then by the time I got my dual associate degree, it was literally when I turned 18. And just acing everything. I had like 2.5 jobs going through, to put myself through college and maintaining this insane grades, right?
Right.
Because again, it's almost like also a cultural expectations.
Right.
And you'll that's common in the Asian family.
Okay.
Right, that you get those straight A's. But to me, academia or academics was also an outlet.
But
So
that's what I was wondering.
yeah,
that's what I was wondering.
I was an avid reader, right?
Yeah.
Voracious appetite for reading, because reading to me became an escape.
Yes.
But I was also very gifted in communications. That's something I inherited from my mother. So anytime that there was some kind of like a public stage or anything, I was naturally drawn to it, and it was naturally drawn to me.
Right.
So we fast forward, I go through life, corporate, I move up within the corporate ladder, I get married, I have my own kids, and 2013 happens.
Right.
I was successful, I put that in quotes, within my own realm, right?
Right.
And just want to go through the motion of life. 2013, a typhoon, one of the biggest ones or strongest one that ever made planet's history, hits the Philippines. That is called Typhoon Haiyan. In fact, it made global news because it was one of the biggest hurricanes by width. They measured it basically from Florida to Canada, kind of like in size.
Right.
And then it made landfall at over 180 miles per hour.
Man.
So, loss of life was basically imminent, and there were thousands of lives lost. There was, islands that were washed out completely. Wow. And it was it was a disaster, a huge natural disaster that made global news. Now, we left in 1986. This is 2013. And although I have never been back, when something like that happens, I'm triggered that home is still home.
It's home. Yeah.
So just like the majority of the world at the time, we were all glued to our television sets, right?
Yeah.
And this is where my life literally started changing. Because in one of those many nights where I'm just going, oh my gosh, what is happening? The country and all those people, I hear a whisper. A whisper that said, stop watching the television and turn on the internet news. And I went, that was weird. We called it, and I called it instinct at the time, right?
Right. Yeah.
I called it instinct. So I was like, all right, turn on the internet news, because see, all over the internet news, Philippine news was not censored. Unlike the Western news where they blur out images or they'll cut certain parts.
Right.
Philippines streaming news was raw. You saw very brutal things.
Right.
So here I was watching this, Google Typhoon Haiyan Philippine news, and all the downloads. I came across information. It was a live stream news. And this news is the one that literally broke my heart, because it showed a mother holding 2 of her dead children, who was probably less than 6 at that time. And behind her, it looked like a freaking nuclear bomb had gone off. And it wasn't just because she was holding them. It was because she doesn't know where the storm took her husband. It destroyed her house completely. But what really broke my soul, it wasn't even just my heart, was she said she's been holding her children for the last 3 days and couldn't even bury them because of the amount of debris. So for the last 3 days, this lifeless body she laid with, asking one question: why?
Yeah.
How can a merciful God spare her life and try to endure this massive loss, permanent loss? Why? And in that moment, right, still crystallized. In that moment, my heart shattered in a million pieces, and I felt this woman's pain as if I was her.
Yeah.
And I cried my head off, Jody. I cried my head off. And all I remember was getting on my knees and activating what becomes the mustard seed that ended up moving mountains.
I love that.
Because all I remember saying is, help me, help them, and activate all the gifts you have given me to help me reach them.
Wow. Okay, so what happens next? Because that's a very powerful prayer and a very powerful time.
And a very powerful intent that I had no idea, but it was just something from my heart because I was hurting for this woman. And I felt like I had to do something, but how was I going to do something? I'm halfway around the world.
Right.
So the next morning, I wake up with an epiphany. I went to bed crying my head off. It was one of those ugly bawling cries until you fall asleep cry.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, girl.
Right.
Nothing but water.
Like snot and all and dry throat.
Yes.
And I went to bed crying for this person I don't even know.
These images that you're in your mind.
It's crystallized to this day when I speak on stage about it. It's the emotion is still there.
Right.
So the next day I wake up and I'm like, there's like cling, this little light bulb, right? An epiphany. Right. And I went, you know what? I sing. It's one of my gifts. So why don't I put a small cabaret concert together, and it's number 20. That second whisper, it's 20. And I'm like, and invite 20 people. That's 20 more people that can donate more than I can.
Right.
It's brilliant.
Right.
So at this point, Facebook was already in existence in 2013. Mm-hmm. So I go to the Asian American community group on Facebook here in Orlando, and I send out a message. Hey, everyone, calling all singers that can really sing. Right. I'm going to put a benefit cabaret, just very small scale, and invite 20 people. Who wants to sing with me? That was my game plan.
Right.
And within 24 hours, there was a flood of messages saying, we're going to sing with you. And I was like, oh, that was pretty cool. Yeah. I was like, I have all the singers. And I said, no one's getting paid. They're like, that's okay. I said, because it's, small scale, 20. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Then the next day I was like, okay, now I need a nonprofit just in case there's people that will donate money. The 20 people that will be attending needs receipts for charity. So a nonprofit that I have always assisted with their events contacted them, and they're like, absolutely, we'll pair up with you. And I said, no one's getting paid, no admin fees. And they're like, not a problem. How many people are you expecting to invite? 20. By day 3, I said, okay, now I need a venue. Mm-hmm. And I say day 3 from that amen, day 3 from that prayer.
Right.
The moment I said I need a venue, and I go to Facebook, and I'm like, I'm planning this little cabaret concert. Can you guys connect me, right? 3 people that did not know each other called me and gave me one pastor's name. And I was like, that's a coincidence.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, it's a coincidence, of course. So I called the pastor and I told him, here's what I'm planning on doing. He's like, oh, perfect. He goes, well, I'll see what I can do for you. Because at this point I said, look, it's November going to December. Every single venue wants to charge thousands and thousands of dollars. If I had it, Why would I decide to give it? I would just donate it.
Donate it.
Right?
Yeah.
So he said, let me see what I can do. So he calls me by day 4. And he goes, Melody, I have a venue for you. And in fact, the back of my head at that point, Jody, is like, man, this is just flowing.
Right. This is easy peasy.
Right? I was like, event planning's nothing.
Right.
Ask and you shall receive.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And by day 4, of course, when he said, I found a venue for you, and great news, they're not going to charge you anything either. And and of course, my first question is, does it hold 20 people?
20 people.
And he kind of laughed. And he said, actually, you were just donated a concert auditorium that has 650 seats.
Wow.
At 0 charge, no expenses.
Wow.
I think, Jody, that was the time, it took 4 days.
Right.
To realize that prayer had unleashed something.
Mm-hmm.
I may not have understood the scope of where it was going yet, because I had to take a hard pause and say, how's it possible that these things are coming my way before I could even ask for it? How's it possible that I've had no expenses, and yet I have a venue, I have singers, I have a nonprofit, I even had a sound engineer.
Wow.
And why is it 650 seats when God told me
right,
20 people?
That's what I was thinking, like 20 people and 650
In fact, I go into panic and like, where am I supposed to find 650 people?
Right, right.
But this is also, where I kind of like tongue-in-cheek joke, be careful what you pray for.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I said, activate all the gifts you've given me to help me reach them, boy, I go into full activation, because now I become an event planner and my own little broadcaster, and putting these things in and going into social media like a crazed woman. Like, I'm putting this little cabaret concert, it's the tickets are this, but behind that, I literally, for 3 weeks of planning, this now becomes a full-blown benefit concert in the making. But for 3 weeks was filled with so many miracles that is written on that book. Okay.
Yeah.
Because before I could ask for anything, it was being provided. It was almost like this invisible hand was guiding, opening doors, and kept opening doors. And some of those miracles, the benefit was we ended up calling it One Night, One Voice. Fueled by the fact that I started getting messages from people I didn't know saying, help us. We're starving. You see, the media shows that you're getting food donations from around the world, but the reality of government corruption is we're only getting 1 can of sardines and 2 pounds of rice to feed us every 4 days, or our family members every 4 days. We're starving. Help us.
Wow.
Or help us. We can't locate our mom. Last known location is this. You seem to be popular. Can you put something on social media? We can't find them.
Wow, I get chill bumps.
Okay, help us. That's all I kept seeing is help us. We're dying. They're dying. We can't find them. Stories after stories. I mean, it broke my heart even more. Who can even sleep at night at that particular point when you're hearing all this? And yet God continued to move in waves, Jody, waves, and I can't even begin to explain. As I said, before I could ask for anything, it was coming my way. So 3 weeks in to preparation, right? A few big miracles ends up happening before the actual event. And I had no idea how many people were going to show up. One of them was a lady that ended up calling me at 10:30 at night and said, I heard about you. Now, remember, in 3 weeks, I've been hearing that I heard about you.
Right.
I heard about what you're trying to do.
Yes.
And I'd like to be an attendee, or how can we help? But this time, this lady goes, I heard about you. I have, just a small budget left in our community giving. But if you can guarantee that 100% of this is going straight to the recipients, to the ground, as you said, that, I've been hearing, can you prepare a letter from a nonprofit? Isn't that funny that 3 weeks before that lady called, a nonprofit lined up? He goes, and guarantee that no one is keeping any dime of this. And I was very transparent. I'm like, I know it's going to the ground, and yes, I can guarantee no one's getting paid. If you ask me who are the recipients, it will be the people in the Philippines. I just don't know who.
Right.
But it will be guaranteed. And she said, that's fine. And I said, okay, but who are you? And at this point, I've been speaking to so many people.
Right.
I said, who are you? And she said, my name is Alyssa, and I represent the company Pepsi. We're here to sponsor
Ooh, we got chill bumps.
Your event.
That's how God works, girl. That's how God works.
God provides before the ask is there because he sees the bigger picture. I'm in concert mode, and I was like, I thought they were going to donate sodas, girl. I was like, why is Pepsi calling me? And to make a long story short, there was a lot of those miracles that happened in the preparation of One Night, One Voice. When the actual event concert happened, there's no rehearsals. I mean, there was nothing. It was other than, here's the lineup of your songs. You have mic check, go, right? But before that, I had artists, I had a choir. I mean, just, it becomes this massive number.
Right.
And I had no idea how many people were going to show up because, see, to me, God told me 20 was going to show up, but yet I had an auditorium of 650 seats.
Right.
With zero advertising other than the word of mouth.
Wow.
And so I just prayed. I remember clearing everyone out of the green room and saying to God, I have no idea what direction this is headed. I don't even know how many people are supposed to show up because 3 weeks ago, this was just a concept. 3 weeks later, it's a full benefit concert. Right? I thought it was supposed to be 20 people. So I said, so if it's only still supposed to be 20 people, then let those 20 be with the most generous hearts, because there's lives waiting halfway around the world.
Just hanging on to faith.
Use us.
Yeah.
Use us. And in fact, the reason I gave my background story before I forget this pivotal moment, because I had a second ugly cry. There were many cries, but the ugly cries are the rare.
Right.
Is I was in a restaurant getting ready for, just the last few days before this event. And I get a message on Messenger from a company that I had reached out to in the Philippines to see if I could borrow a quote that was stated by this. He's actually CNN Hero of the Year recipient. And he goes, when I read it, girl, I was crying so hard in the restaurant. It was like, ugly cry. Because he said, Melody, first of all, I didn't expect to hear from this person.
Right.
Because he's kind of like a big somebody there. He goes, I heard what you're trying to do. And absolutely, he goes, you can use my quote.
Wow.
But this is where it got me. Was when he said, oh, hero of your country, rise up.
Ooh, girlfriend.
Your people need you. Oh, hero of your country, rise up. Your people need you. Well, when I read those words, Jody,
no, I bet you told
I
me.
was hit with two emotions. First one that I had no idea was deeply buried was complete anger, just washing all over me, of going, how dare you call me a hero of this country that betrayed my family? You had no idea what we went through. And now how dare you put this responsibility on me?
Wow.
Right? It was like this pure anger coursing. And that's why the tears started.
Right.
Falling. And then there was a second emotion. It became a homecoming. Reading those words again that says, your people need you.
Right.
Is that I realize I'm in a position to do something.
It's so powerful.
Right? First of all, you have a Hero of the Year award recipient on an international scale now charging me with the responsibility to rise up. And so
I have to ask you, I have to stop you right here. So when that happened, was there fear?
There was anger, and then there was calmness.
But
The fear?
it was never
Well,
fear
no.
that you wouldn't be able to fill those shoes, that you wouldn't be able to do that by
There
that.
was anxiety, not fear.
Okay.
Because I guess why I wasn't fearful at that point was I had not spent a single dime in this full-scale production.
Right. Yeah.
The anxiety was like, there's 650 seats. Are 10 people going to show up? Right? I mean, that's going to look so odd if only 10 people show up.
It's kind of like the unknown. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, and then your mind starts spinning.
Well, not only that, there's going to be more singers on stage than there is in the audience. And a full choir donated by a church, right? And then different singers and different groups. So I had this like crazy idea. It's like, well, you know, when they're not singing, they go on the audience just so that we feel that there's something in the room. But anyway, it took me to that prayer.
Yeah.
Of just saying, dear Lord, Father God, I have no idea how many people are out there because you told me 20, but let them be with the most generous hearts. Thy will be done.
Yes.
And just make sure that this is a really good show where everybody pours their heart out in singing. When I stepped out on that stage, Jody, and I asked the technical engineers to turn the light on because it was pitch black in the audience, and the lights came on, I cried one more time because the auditorium was nearly filled to capacity. God showed me then what he was fully capable of without having to have this branding and marketing and advertising and everything other than a faith-filled prayer.
Wow.
And I cried so hard. I was like, because I knew my journey. I knew how that started 3 weeks ago of just going, oh, I can sing. I'll put a cabaret concert together. And okay, 20 people it is. And seeing that auditorium. And we sang our hearts out. There was so much to this miracle that I really we don't have enough time for. So, but I'll share, you know, for that. But we sang our heart out. And that number 20, where that led to, remember that number 20? Because it's like, what's with this 20?
What's with 20, right?
Led to actually ending up saving and impacting over 20,000 lives halfway around the world.
Wow.
We ended up building sustainability gardens. We ended up putting together feeding programs that's fed over 20,000 children. We ended up sending medical help and sponsoring some medical students to be able to fly to the Philippines at ground zero. I mean, the miracles. It's like the parable of 5 loaves and 5 fishes, 2 fishes. And it was an unseen, I mean, I can't even explain that number 20, if there was any big lesson from that, was you do not doubt the God you serve.
Right. And that's exactly what I was thinking. You're thinking 20
is capable of. I'm thinking 20, and that whisper is 20,000. That if you do not step into the purpose of your calling, there's 20,000 people waiting for you to take action, to take the leap of faith, to say yes. That yes, you don't have the resources, but I will provide.
Right.
You just have to say yes and trust me in everything that I'll do. That at what was physically evident was not the reality. It was what was physically invisible that he is capable of. Because the number 20 that was whispered was 20,000 waiting, Melody, who stepped in. Oh, hero of your country, rise up. There were messages along the way.
So good,
right?
so good, so good.
And now I have to say that, you know, I thought that would be the end all be all. I've done my thing, but no, girl, 2015 was a year of breakdown, because as you're doing and walking in God's purpose, the enemy is not far from attacking you in every single direction that he can take you down.
Don't you know? That is the
truth
right there.
So 2013 to 2014, girls, like stages open. They're like, we're going to invite you to speak because this is unheard of.
Yeah.
To this day, unheard of to this day, that you have not spent a single dime. This is what happened. 20,000, you connected, you know, halfway around the world. There's, you know, Even my own 7-year-old son then was used by God to connect some of those activities halfway around the world, just for him writing a little letter.
Right.
Right?
Wow.
So 2015, I go through a breakdown. I end up filing for divorce after 17 years. Lots of transitions in my life. And my goodness, you're going to get an amen from a lot of your viewers and listeners. It is at the height of your adversity. Mm-hmm. In your own breakdown, you really get to know who's there for you.
Amen. I'll be
who
the
your
first.
real friends are.
I'll be the first. Amen. It's so true.
And you know what? There was none. There's ministry betrayal and pain of trust and friendship. There were friends that who thought you were friends were gossiping like crazy. You see, with the popular Melody, everybody loved. Right. The Melody that was going through her suffering, they were like, oh, you're not that after all. Right. And it's this, the gossips, who you thought you were friends. There was no one to be found. And that was the period, especially in the ministry pain, when the ministers that I thought were friends said, goodbye. We kind of prayed about you, but now we have more important things and we just can't handle your pain. Wow. Abandonment in every single direction. And I came to the point in my life where I thought I needed to just end my life to end the suffering. Wow. And voices in my head saying, end your life.
Been there.
Right? End your life because you're not good enough. And the mockery of one night, one voice, when a minister, remember, beware of false prophets. Beware who speaks life into your life. Just because they have a title of all those credentials does not mean. Right. So you have to be careful and pray on the right people that comes into your life and speaks life into your life, because they can also speak death into your life. And that's exactly what happened, right? Right. Was this people telling me one night, one voice was not a God miracle. That was your ego. Wow. Of instilling all of this, and I'm going, no, that was God's miracle. They're like, nope, it wasn't. That was Melody's ego.
But you knew better. Which you knew that it wasn't.
Well, you got to think that.
But when it's coming at you and you're at your lowest point, it's kind of like when you're at your lowest point and someone kicks you, or they kick you when you're down. And I just have to interject real quick. Mm-hmm. What's so amazing with how God works is 2016 was that for me. 2016 was the first time I ever got bullied. I never got bullied until I was around a group of women who, some were grandmothers, but they were bullying me and being mean to me. And like you were talking about gossiping about me, and I removed all these people out of my life. And I was so broken and upset at that time. But what I realized is God was moving them out of the way because they couldn't go where God was taking me. And the same with
blessings. Yep. Well, the blessings are in the reveal, but at the height of that, you felt betrayed, abandoned. And it wasn't so much as even all the friends that departed. It was the pastors. Yeah. When that ministry pain happened, it made me question everything I believed in. Because if you're a pastor and you're a pastor's wife, how in the world do you abandon someone in need and tell them that it's too much and we got to move on and good luck to you, and then block me from communicating? Wow. See, that I could almost understand people, but I think there's the guilt in us that when we see somebody ordained ministers and pastors, that there's a certain level of expectation. Sure. Sometimes we forget that they're also people. They're humans.
They're humans. Right.
Right. So they're subjected to human things. So when that happened, made me question my very faith. And I stopped praying. I stopped going to church, girl. I was like in just complete anger for months. Wow. Until somebody sent me a video that was so powerful to wake me up, that said the attacks on your life has nothing to do with who you were, but all to do with who you will become.
That's it right there. That is it. And I want our listeners to hear this, same for Melody, same for myself, guys. If you're watching this or listening to this, please know that if you're in that dark place, as I say a lot of times, if you're in that cocoon state, that hold on, because God does have bigger things for you and your future. And the enemy is going to try to tell you the opposite. A lot of people in their lives right before the major breakthroughs were coming, but they get inside their head and the enemy is so loud. And in your case, you know, this was a preacher. And I've heard a lot of different things with pastors that have happened with, you know, denial and things that are very ugly. But like you said, he's human. But, you know, being that a person that goes through these hard times have to understand that, yes, you go through the dark, but the light is coming. And you just have to hold on to that. So I just needed to say that real quick.
Right. In my case, the first time I heard that message, I got angrier.
What was the message exactly?
Again, it was the attacks on your life. All this bad things are happening.
Right.
Has nothing to do with who you are.
Right.
But all to do with who you will become.
And that made you mad?
It made me angry because the validation of the ego. What do you mean triggers from when I was little, right? What do you mean that I'm not good enough? I mean, hello, one night, one voice, 20,000 people. I mean, you think that I'm like, I got angrier at God. Because how dare you say that nothing to do with who I am? Do you not know who I am? You know, that the very natural thing that happens to us.
Yeah.
And then I heard the voice. Because first, God was silent in my life for months. I couldn't hear him because I was so angry and hurt, right? And then I heard the melody. You're screaming at the wrong entity. So I said, wait a minute. But this is after screaming in my closet like a woman that's gone insane.
I've done that in my car before, and then I realized that somebody's behind me, and I'm sure they're looking at me like, what is wrong with that woman? You know, because I've had little screaming fits in my car and just beating the steering wheel, and the people behind me are like, what's wrong with her?
Well,
so,
I was in my closet.
At least somebody can see you.
Because my kids were in school, but I didn't want the neighbors thinking that I was being murdered or I was murdering somebody.
Right.
Because if you've ever had that complete rage.
Oh, I've been there.
All that pent up, how dare you, where are you, throwing the Bible on the floor, you know, wanting to rip it apart, and the Bible was thick enough that I couldn't even rip it.
Thank God for that, girl, because I don't think we need to be doing that. I think abort.
These are 100% human emotions.
Yes.
But God meets you
girl.
At those moments.
Yes.
Because now you're naked in his eyes, right? Emotions are pouring. He took me to the place, but literally it was just me and him. And me and him was not me praising hallelujah. Me and him was being a complete bitch of going, how dare you, blah, blah, blah. You left me alone too because you've been silent and you allowed all this bad things to happen of people talking about me and your pastor. I mean, you name it. Right? It was like I was like a little wind-up towel that wouldn't stop. Screaming and whining and until I fell down on my carpet and I was just so exhausted from the anger and the tears. And then I'm like, where are you? Where have you been? But in between all the crying, I'm like, you left me too.
Yeah.
Where are you? And that's when I heard that whisper, you've been screaming at the wrong entity. Girl, when the realization that the devil had tried to, but put lies in my belief, had, you know, the clarity, like it's like this freaking floodlight, that I realized that even those ministers were not really of God's word because they were mocking what I knew was a miracle.
Right.
Was when I took, it's kind of like this charge of energy, a new anger comes. But this time, instead of screaming at God, I'm screaming at the devil himself.
That's
going,
good.
Who am I supposed to become? What the heck are you so fearful of? Because I know the word says you're already defeated. I know that you have an end. The moment Jesus was nailed on the cross, I knew you were done. But what am I to you? At what point did I become a direct threat to hell's plans? That you're trying to take me down. What is there that I don't see that you're trying to prevent from happening?
Wow.
And that's when I was humbled on my knees one more time, snot and cries and everything, asking God to forgive me. But this time to please make sure that I hear him in loud booming voices, but to not leave me, and to now send in the people that are a lifetime no longer seasoned in reason.
Ooh.
That I would have clear discernment on who is from him and not of him. And to show me plainly, to take me on this journey to see what is it that was being prevented from happening.
Right.
So 2016 was my learning growth year. By 2017, the very materialization of what was being prevented started happening. Yes. Because just when I thought 20,000 people was pretty awesome, I ended up creating, and I'm the founder of the 14th Congressional Advocacy Team for UNICEF in the United States. So from 20,000, I now represent 190 countries in children advocacy and the humanitarian space. When I knew that I had the gift of communication, God opened the multimedia doors. I ended up having, not only being a contributing writer in an international magazine, I ended up interviewing influencers of their stories of breakdown to breakthrough and how funny it was that they were consistent in their suicidal thoughts. How funny it was that at one point, their complete breakdown said, God help me. And how God positioned them around the world now to become transformational leaders.
Right.
And I'm talking some of the biggest names. This article starts winning awards. Next thing you know, I had a 200,000 reader reach, a 300,000 reader reach. And God didn't stop there.
Right.
Right? Because then from there comes a television show. Season 1 played out last year. Then from that comes the podcast. Right? The podcast that ends up, I go in as a guest, I come out with a contract. Those things does not happen in a natural order. You go in a supernatural order, right?
Yes.
The offers come and there was a command, speak the truth. The people that's come into my life, the stages got bigger. It doesn't mean that the enemy stopped attacking, but I learned to put the full armor of God at the time that I needed, which is supposed to be 100% anyway.
Right.
To recognize the lies that were coming and being spoken on me, because something beautiful was being prevented from happening, which is pointing back up to kingdom purpose and the giftings that I've been born with. Right. So the stages got bigger. I ended up being selected to speak at the United States of Women last year, sharing platforms with the former First Lady Michelle Obama. Girl, I sat in the audience in shock, going, oh my gosh, I'm one of them.
Yeah.
I'm on a panel the following day speaking purpose, not position, to spread messages to empowering women. But on stage are some of the most iconic women that's changed the face of the game for women around the world, not just US based.
Right.
Right. And I'm one of them. And then Les Brown's team, I get invited to speak on his stage as the only female keynote speaker. Jody and I are speakers, and we know the game that others play, you know, where you have to pay on stage thousands and thousands of dollars to be branded. Mine goes the complete opposite. It was by divine, invitation.
Yeah.
It by supernatural alignments. I mean, I had celebrities come up out of nowhere. I'm sitting down in a valet parking lot. John Travolta shows up. I'm standing in line at a hotel lobby in LA, and Mark Cuban pops up next to me. I mean, this is like crazy situations, but it happened consistently. Right. And in the meantime, people are paying them $10,000, $40,000 just to have this opportunity. And God's just gone, boop, boop, boop. I could be in a Starbucks and this other person shows up, right? But the stages got bigger. The audience space got bigger. The purpose got clearer, to the point that I ended up finally having to say, you know, when you don't obey God's order, he will start making things uncomfortable in your life. He will start closing doors until you're left with no other choice but to follow that direction.
Right.
And I ended up ending my corporate life after 22 years of going to entrepreneurship, of going, all right, now why? Because the limitations were within those walls.
Right, exactly.
And then more big things started happening. right, that I'll be announcing over the next few weeks here. But again, just like what's happening in your life that you're finding yourself in.
Yes.
People will just call you. We heard about you.
Right.
Or we saw your segment and then we want to offer you this. On an earthly level, you're looking at it going, oh my goodness, right?
Right.
But on a supernatural level, there's a purpose. Because whoever's listening to this podcast, whoever's watching this television show, I want you to know this is not by accident.
That's right.
There's a reason why you flipped on all the millions of shows out there. You came across this.
That's right.
Of all the podcasts that are out there, you ended up hearing this.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say, you know, it's so beautiful how you were real and raw about the committing suicide part, because if you would have ended your life, then you wouldn't have went on to help all of these children around the world. You wouldn't have moved on to inspire and empower people everywhere. And so it's beautiful to me because it shows that although you were human and you were beat down and you were angry and you were frustrated, that throughout all that, God's still right there. God's still, I feel like God's up there sometimes and he's looking down and he's just shaking his head like, you just don't even know what I have ready for you. You don't even know what's waiting for you.
Jeremiah 29:11.
Yes.
For I know the plans I have for you.
Yes.
Right?
So, yes, which is so beautiful. Well, Melody, I love you. I appreciate you coming on this show. I appreciate you sharing your story. And I want to say that keep going. Just keep doing what you're doing. And although the enemy may, roar his head here and there, we see his leash and we know, no power. Go back to where you belong. As you said, when you want to direct your anger somewhere and yell, that's where we yell. We yell at the devil back underneath our feet. And thank you for being my first guest, because I've
I completely
much.
appreciate it. And again, to all your viewers and listeners, follow Jody in her journey, because I've already gone through that part and I see her emerging, in the multimedia space as well. And that is not by accident, because her story is very powerful of overcoming. It's that faith over fear. It's faith over lies. It's literally choosing faith for your purpose.
Yes.
At the end of the day, because you were born for a reason.
That's exactly
and the sufferings
right.
will be there as just stumbling blocks to help you. It will grow you. There's beautiful lessons to be doing that. If we did not go through the betrayals, Jody, we'd still be surrounded by those type of quality people. But
so
because
true.
we've learned our lessons through all those pain, we have discernment on what is a distraction and what is a blessing.
Yes. Absolutely.
So I ended with this. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my story on faith over fear. And thank you so much to all your listeners for hanging out with us today. Yes. And to your viewers. And please continue to support my friend Jody Paar over here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And everybody, again, if you want to learn more, you want to reach out to Melody Garcia, melodygarcia.org. Also on all social media, social media platforms. You can find her underneath Melody Garcia. So thank you guys for listening, watching, and I appreciate you more than you know. I love you all. Be bold, sparkle on, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.